some people just light up a room. Some people just light up a room or light up the chat or light up, an interview. Like some people are like that. People are attracted. There's a magnetic nature. And stars are always like that, no matter what genre of star you are. We've both been around a lot of famous DJs. I've been around a lot of different famous type of people. And you can tell it's different, right? When I think about, I'm like literally going through my head of like who we've really gotten behind, some of the artists we're working with now who we're getting behind. I'm like, yeah, it's because like they're magnetic. I'm attracted to their aura.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guests are the founders of one of the most influential brands in the underground dance music scene. Starting off as a weekly industry party in LA, they have since grown into a full event promotion company and record label, throwing shows all over the country and helping launch and grow the careers of countless artists. This is Rami, Perlman, and Henry Liu from Space Yacht.
What's up?
Thanks
for having us.
Hell yeah. Great to see you guys. It's been a long time. This is my first podcast with two people, actually. So this is kind of cool seeing both you guys up here. But welcome to the show. Happy to have you on.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. And we've known you for a while now. I mean, from the Icon days. So it's good to see you.
Yeah.
And kind of reconnect.
From the beginning, man. I got to see Space Yacht start from the very beginning. Yeah. And I'd love to start there. I'd love to hear, first off, what was the inspiration for starting Space Yacht, which when I remember it, when it started, it was like a 50-person, 80-person party on a Tuesday night in like a little tiny ass room in the Hollywood somewhere. Like, let's go back. Yeah. What inspired you guys to start that party?
Yeah, well, I think Henry and I were working together. We both worked at a marketing job at a startup that focused on social media and marketing. And we met late, in the late night, the wee hours of the night after everybody had left. I'd be like bumping house music and was starting to start my own project. I go by London Bridge as a DJ, so I started producing my own music, and I'd be playing the music for Henry because we just became. Like, he's like, oh, you like this type of music? Oh, I like, so I'd be playing him records and stuff. And so we kind of became friends through that, just like late nights at the office talking about music. And then I think the impetus was, for me personally, selfishly, I wanted to start something because I didn't want to have to ask promoters if I could play their shows. Like, I used to be in rock bands and stuff, and I had a whole other life of being an artist before trying to really focus on DJing as an artist. So my one goal was to be like, I don't want to be begging someone to play. That was my one goal. And then Henry had a background in promoting shows in college. And there was another partner we had, Ali, shout out to Ali. He and Ali had done they were best friends and did a lot of kind of live music work in college together. So they had that background. To your question, which is what was like the inspiration to doing it. I mean, I moved to LA in 2003, and Steve Aoki used to do the Tuesday nights at a place called Cinespace. So for those that are of my era, you'll remember that was the party. He would be breaking bands because, like, in the back they'd have live bands. So bands like Block Party, Skrillex played one of his first shows there. Like, it was very early days. And then Steve would DJ in the front. And this was before DJing was what it is now, where like the DJ's the headliner. The DJ was always in the side room or whatever. Yeah. But it was Steve's party. So from an inspiration standpoint, that party had just kind of sunsetted. It became Dim Mak Tuesdays, and they stopped doing it. And Henry and I saw kind of a hole in the market where we were like, okay, if, we can start this party. For me, selfishly, I was like, I'm going to open up every show. I'll play every show. This is how I kind of launch my own shit. And then, we found this venue through a friend of ours, and he had just opened it and was like, hey, come throw a party here. The first one was smashed. It, like, totally like packed, and he was like, you got to do this every week. We weren't going to do it every week. We're like, oh, we'll do a monthly. We'll do a party here and there. So it was really the owner of that club who like got us into the mindset of doing a weekly. And then, as I mentioned, like, we knew that a Tuesday night could work because I had always been going to Steve's parties. So that was kind of like the through line there. And I do like, because that's like so long ago, you know what I mean? Like a lot, like the Steve Aoki Tuesday night parties, like most kids weren't there or were really young when that was happening. So I don't think that that's like present on the surface anymore. But for me, when I think about the DNA of this party, I feel like we are in the lineage of those people who threw the Tuesday night parties, and there is a connection. Yeah. You know what I mean? There. So, so that's kind of a long-winded way of saying that I just wanted to DJ my own show.
That's cool. I never made that connection because I remember the Dim Mak Tuesdays, and then you guys, there was a Tuesday night where all of a sudden nothing was happening. So you guys definitely filled that void.
And before Dim Mak Tuesdays, like people to go way back, there was a place called Star Shoes. It was like an old shoe store on Hollywood Boulevard that got converted into kind of a small little bar, and it was like the Maroon 5 guys right before they blew up. It was like their whole crew. So that was the first Tuesdays I'd go to were those Tuesdays. It was a kind of a different scene. Yeah. So I think Tuesday nights are for the party heads, man. Like if you're out on a Tuesday night, that means you're serious about, nightlife and going out. Yeah. So that definitely was exciting for us. And you
guys, it wasn't just the party heads, but you guys I really saw that as like an industry party. It was like anybody that was involved in the industry, that worked in the industry in some way. Man, it was the managers that were coming out. It was all the producers, all the kids from Icon. So how did it become like an industry party in that way? Was that intentional, or was that just happened organically?
I think it all started with it's like the roster of the first party. You start with the first 200 people you invite, which I think at the time were kind of people we were either working with or working for. Or people we had seen through just like we were all going out all the time. And I don't think any of us had any shortage of partying. So I suppose we kind of had our little mini Rolodex I guess scene kids, if that's the word for it.
Yeah. Well, first off, I love what you said, Rami, about like, you wanted to play shows. You didn't have to depend on other people. Right. So you just fucking go out there and make your own thing. Right. I think that's so cool, and that's a great, tip for maybe other artists that are out there that aren't getting the slots that they want or playing the shows that they want, or maybe there's no fucking shows in your town that are happening.
Right.
Make it.
Right.
Create it. Go
right.
Out there
and I think in a place where there's no shows happening, I think you have the best opportunity.
Right.
Especially if you have a clique of like your best friends who are all interested in the same music, and that applies to anything. It could be hip hop, country music, whatever. It's like if you know that you have like 10 friends who are interested in the same thing, those 10 friends invite, 2 people, you got a little party going.
For people that are maybe considering throwing their own party and wanting to kind of get into that game, what allowed you guys to be successful? Like specifically, like how did you market your parties? Is it like text messages, emails? Like how do you get people to come to a show, right? And even just artists that aren't promoters, like you are a promoter. Remember that, like you are a co-promoter of that show. When you get booked, It's not just up to the promoter to promote the show and get people through the doors. You need to be doing it too. So you should have your promoter hat on and be thinking that way. We got 2 fucking of the best promoters in the world on the podcast right now. So let's break it down. How do you promote a show? How do you get people in the fucking door?
Henry.
This
is you. This is all you.
It started. It's going to sound so weird saying this on air today, but at the time, having a Twitter and having an attitude, and being a brand with an attitude was a relatively kind of rare thing, and it's going to seem so commonplace now, but I think we were it came from a place of like, hey, like a brand is a living thing, and you can let it have its own voice. You could let it have its own identity and way of going about things. And we kind of always looked at it that way. So, it's the way that maybe a producer out there might like, they might have a different persona once they take the stage. And that's totally fine. And we went about it in that kind of realm, and it had its own spin, and I think I'm glad you brought up what you did about like how when you're being booked, it's less of a, client vendor relationship and more about like, hey, you're on this show. This is as much as your show as is mine. And the way you're characterizing it, it is a partnership, and you'd be surprised. Like not everyone feels that way. And I think, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's like, the artists that do think of it that way and do think of their audiences as like, hey, I'm using this platform as a way to grow my own voice, but also for me to deliver to the stage that I'm going to play for an hour and a half, whatever it may be. And the ones who do take advantage of that and think of it that way are going a little further. And I think that's a little akin to how we took it too. Every time we got the opportunity to use a venue for 5 hours, you could do it and hope for the best, or you could try to portray, this sense of community through your messages, how you dress, the music you listen to, the links that you click, even all those little bits and pieces, and the way we kind of acted, I think, add to the sense of community. And
the flyer,
yeah. I used to, there was this old mentor of mine that said, everything is a brand. Kind of a weird way of, he said it kind of in a weird way, but like, I think what he meant to say was like, every little detail communicates a brand.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised, even the way you walk,
I love that I asked a question about marketing.
Sure.
But we can't have that conversation before we have the conversation about branding, because this is where most artists really fuck up. Is they're like, okay, cool, I made music. Now how do I market it? Now let me go get it out there. Let me go put it out. But you're skipping over this really important step. I like to look at it, whether it's the show, whether it's your music, that's the product that you're selling to the marketplace. Before you go out and you try to sell it in a very oversaturated marketplace where there's a lot of other people selling the same shit, you got to put it in a package that is unique in some way, that is going to turn heads, and that's going to have its own little special flavor, So I love that. Like, yeah, before it comes to like, did you use a newsletter or a text thing or whatever, like social media strategy, like what the fuck are you selling in the first place? Right. And what you were selling, yeah, you were selling some fucking attitude on Twitter. I remember back in the Twitter days, I used to follow you. There was always some crazy, funny, ratchet shit, being talked about, right? But that was the vibe. It was a vibe. You guys even had like the pizzas. You guys would bring out pizzas. There was a thing. You guys had a thing. You had a brand. You had an attitude. You had a flavor. You had something special and unique that, okay, now we can go market it. Right. Yeah. And I think that's the real important piece that a lot of people are missing. What the fuck? What are you selling, and why is it interesting? Why is it different?
No. And by the way, to that, it's like, that's our daily, I'd say, initiative is how do we communicate these different things that you talked about, and it's different 9 years later than it was then, but the spirit is still the same. And so how do you rope in somebody who now has much more options than they did back when we started, and differentiate yourself from the other brands that are kind of in the wings, you know what I mean? And so that's what keeps us on our toes, because we're constantly trying to evolve it. I mean, right now you have like everybody on the team now is doing kind of a social media challenge. So you see the content I'm making, like Tay, who does a lot of our marketing, she's like just unlocked how to make her TikToks go viral. She just had 3 in a row that like did over 100,000 views out of nowhere, because of this kind of all of us being like, we need to study this, because the flyer and the ratchet tweets, and even some of the text messages that used to work, we need to kind of step into what's happening now in order to kind of stay afloat, or not afloat, but stay relevant rather, or at least be able to communicate the stuff you were talking about in a way that is current to this crew, because 2015 is not 2024, and we started in 2015.
Everything so quickly changes too. It's like every fucking 6 months, every 3 months. It's we're in a different place.
Going back to the brand question that you kind of mentioned, where it's like you got to start with the brand. It's like that really is like a soul searching endeavor, because if you're like an artist, you have to be real with yourself. Like what is different about me? What is it? Is it the music itself? It's very hard to be the type of artist that can just be on their music. It's very hard to be a Skrillex. It's very hard to be a Fred again. Those are top tier producers. That's like the best of the best. That's like the 0.5%, are that. The rest of us are not that. So then what do we do to convince you that you should either follow me, listen to my music, come to my show? And that in lies kind of the soul searching. And by the way, for those listening who are either just starting or even a couple years into this, it doesn't come overnight. Like, you got to whittle it away. It's like a statue where it's like there's a piece of marble and you got to chip away to get to, the David. You know what I mean? It's like that. I think that applies to this. And and I don't think it ever stops. Right? So it's like, I think John Summit is a great example. He made some really fun, like, TikTok-y videos in the early days to help him kind of move along, and used, Deep End, which is like a TikTok vocal, to do that. But then now, once he got kind of out of that, he then created his whole brand that kind of doesn't have anything to do with that. You know what I'm saying? Like John Summit's brand is now a very refined, larger than life thing that he couldn't do before he was famous. And now, so, you know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is the branding never stops.
Yeah.
Being a brand is always evolution, and you must evolve in order. I mean, look at someone like Tiesto. Tiesto does it through the collaborations he does, right? He's been around for fucking 30 years. The music has evolved, but his evolution is always like, who's the hottest producer? Great. Let's get them in the studio. I'm going to connect with them and move along that way. Shaq is doing that right now as well. You know, he just did a whole summit of dubstep producers. It's like 2 days ago. They were all posting it, like AT Aliens. I forget who else was there, but it was like a bunch of, Bendo was there. You know, because he knows, he's like, yeah, I DJ, I'm Shaq, but like I'm going to fucking surround myself with the best of the best in order to be as relevant as I possibly can, you know, right now. So I think that's, you know, back to like the people just starting out. It's like, do you like dogs? Are you really into peanut butter? Are you like, what are you about? And express that and weave that into kind of how you're marketing this stuff.
Yeah. You know. And trust us, like that's the stage that you're at in that moment, and it's going to grow. It's going to evolve. You're not going to be the same person you were, you know, a year ago, and you just got to keep unfolding and keep exploring. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
So you guys have definitely unfolded quite drastically over the last, 10 years it's been. What do y'all have going on now? Because there's you guys are doing shows in other cities. You guys have a label now. Like, what's the whole landscape of Space Yacht look like these days?
These days, it's weird. We kind of psych ourselves out on it, but like it's kind of the norm to have 8 shows a month, I'd say, on average. And we try to make them very special. But this year, I think, is the first year where we really felt like our label has really caught up in terms of the energy of which we put our time. And it's almost accidental, but it's very in line with like the first year of like, we really wanted to create a platform to put our like artists on in our own way, in our kind of spicy or alternative way. But, it's enabling to us to like sign a kid from South Korea that makes bass house, or like a dubstep kid from Belgium. It's, when are we ever going to get a chance to book them on a show? It could happen, but it's going to, take a long time. But the fact that we can do this all online on, it used to be Twitter. Now it's kind of like Instagram. So be it. Right. But to be able to do that and stay true to that mission, has been such kind of a relief, but also it's opened a whole new avenue of business and creativity for us.
And that's something that I really love about what you guys are all about, is you guys put people on. Like, you guys have helped really grow people from the start, and because there's a different ball game that's being played out there of, just labels and shows that are like, they're just the fucking big guys. But, coming from Icon, where like we were an artist development program, like obviously we had a very synergistic relationship where we were helping people create the artistry and the music. You guys were oftentimes the ones that people would play their very first show at. And then you guys would also really do a lot for artist development, So first off, I just want to send some praise and some acknowledgement over to your way, because, you guys have really affected the lives and careers of countless artists at this time. I'm sure so many people look back and are like, yeah, Space Yacht really helped fucking put me on. So,
thank you.
I love that. I think we're kindred souls in that mission.
No, and that is that space that we play in, the kind of like first show or kind of like shepherding of new talent to try to get them kind of to level up. That is what it is at the core of our brand. You know what I mean? Even though we'll do big shows at Exchange or do festival stages and have kind of these bigger shows, the DNA of what we do is we want to find an artist that you've never heard of that blows your mind, And I think, to Henry's point with the label, we're now able to do it in a different way, where it's like, we can put, like, so last night, great example. We put out a single by this group called Tripbox, big fans of theirs. They've been playing our shows. They play the opening slot. And then we put out their record last week, and then they played our show last night. And it was really funny. We put them as direct support. And one of the guys came up to me. He's like, hey man, like, I didn't know like we can get like a bottle and like beers and stuff like that. We've never had that. And I was like, yeah, because you've always been the opener. You get drink tickets. Now you're fucking one of the big boys. You get to have your own bottle. And he's like, man, like, that blows my mind. And I was like, well, get used to it, right? Like, so that was like a great kind of thing, because I was like, yeah, we have been along here with these guys. They're still, coming up. They're still trying to earn their stripes, but at the same time, you can see the progression, even just through our universe, that it's like, yeah, no, they're worthy of being direct support, and they smashed it, and they had all their homies out, and it was amazing. So we take a lot of pride in that. We take a lot of pride in seeing people on the Coachella lineup who played their first show with us, or EDC lineup, any of that. That is something that is real, that we see a lot of. And, you'll look at the EDC flyer and we'll be like, yo, we've booked half these people when nobody knew who they were. So that really is what the brand is about. Obviously, Henry and I have lofty goals. We want to be as big as possible as a brand, but it always kind of stems from that. And I will say, like, we haven't mentioned it yet, but for your listeners who are interested in kind of connecting with us, we do live streams twice a week. They're called Tune Reactor. Henry and I listening to music for 2 hours, and we actually sign a lot of the music. About 90% of what we sign to our label comes from that show directly from Twitch, and a lot of people who were booking on our shows were meeting through that show as well. So that's kind of like become another part of the evolution of Space Yacht, kind of back to like, where we're at now as a brand versus 10 years ago. I think the Twitch of it all and the ability to connect directly on our live streams is really helping to kind of shepherd in the new kids who were, or at least it's a discovery engine to find those new people who we want to put on the label.
It's so cool because I'll see artists that I know out there posting clips of you guys like listening to their music, and they get so fucking pumped. They're like, "Oh, Space Yacht like shouted me out, or they listened to my song, or they gave me some good feedback." And that's such a what you guys are doing is you're adding even more value to the community. Like, you're already adding value to the community by saying, "Hey, like we've got these shows and we've got this platform," but now doing that as well, doing these Tune Reactor things. It's just I have this conversation a lot, but it's just, how are you adding value to the community? And that's a really cool, beautiful way to do it. Even if you don't sign them, just giving people the time of day to have their music be heard and get some feedback, like, that's invaluable, especially for a young artist. That might be the first time they're ever having their song, played and really heard and listened to by anybody. So it's pretty rad.
I think I want to touch on that. How are you adding value? I think applies up and down the spectrum of whether you're an artist or someone who wants to throw parties or a designer or a graphic designer. That's the big term we use. It's like, what is the value here? So fine. So you have an unannounced lineup. Great. What is the value? Is it the value because it's a $5 ticket or an RSVP ticket? Or is the value that you're there and fucking this huge artist showed up out of nowhere and you're like, oh shit, right? So no matter what show we have to decode what the value is so that when someone gets there, they feel like they got either their money's worth because it was something that was, affordable, or they paid a $20 regular ticket, but then their minds were blown because they saw someone they didn't expect to see, or exposing them to something new that they haven't heard before that like will also blow their minds as well. So I think that the term value really is important throughout like the entire chain of our universe,
Yeah, or they got free pizza in the middle of the show.
Or they got free pizza, sure.
I don't know if you guys still do that, but that was like that.
We do.
All these fucking hungry producers were so pumped on some free Domino's.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're gonna.
You guys still do that? You guys still bring the pizza out?
We do. You know where they go crazy for it is in San Diego. We have a show in San Diego tonight, and that's like right now the pizza capital. Like, people go fucking nuts.
So good, dude. So good. So I want to know. Obviously, the music comes first. As you guys are doing these Tune Reactor shows and you guys have your label, and you guys are looking at an artist, obviously, listening to the music, right? Music comes first. But besides the music, what inspires you guys to really get behind an artist and support them?
I mean, I know for me, it's who they are as people, TBH. The people we get behind are the people who we fuck with as people. If I look at the things that we've really bent over backwards for, it's like they make dope music, they have a dope outlook, it's different, but also like we'd want to hang out with them. You know what I mean? Like, and that's for me. I don't know if that's the same for Henry, but for me personally, like, I look at the people that I get behind who I really care about. It's because I care about them as people.
Yeah, I was looking for the words to say pretty much the exact same thing, but like as an artist, you take that as a counterpoint to like someone who built an audience, and sometimes we all get this reaction. It's like, you look at what they're doing, you're like, really? You built a platform to do that? And so we're kind of, it matters. That energy comes from a very real place. So I think it goes to say that it matters the stance you take in the world, and not trying to make it political, but like what the value you bring to the world, the message that you bring to the world, and the way you kind of carry yourself is something we always love to talk about. Like, before we sign an artist, before we book an artist, is like, is this person just cool to be around? You know, does this person add this positive energy into the world and add this sense of attraction? And honestly, I think the artists that take off have it, whether or not they're working with us, they're just that, right? And they attract people who want to work with them in kind. So I think that's where it's at.
Let's go a little deeper into that. Like, what is that? What are those qualities?
I mean, if I broke down an artist that I'd be happy to see them grow is I think someone who's willing to nurture the space in between. So it starts with the space in between us as promoters or bookers and the artist as someone we booked. And someone who can nurture and build that space is most likely going to be qualified to do that between themselves and their audience. And how do you build that is like, you know, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's such a good question because like you start with a song and you start with a cool night. And in between, I think, you know, the human element is what do people like to say? It's like, it's an amassment of collective memories and a collective experience and shared experiences. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, is this a long-winded answer to maybe a simple question, but I think Rami, you might probably have better words for it.
No, but I think to get touchy-feely, some people just light up a room. Some people just light up a room or light up the chat or light up, you know, an interview. Like some people are like that. People are attracted. There's a magnetic nature. And that, I think that's always, stars are always like that, no matter what genre of star you are. You know, we've both been around a lot of famous DJs. I've been around a lot of different famous type of people. And you can tell it's different, right? It doesn't mean that they're necessarily good people, but I think for us, when I think about, I'm like literally going through my head of like who we've really gotten behind, some of the artists we're working with now who we're getting behind. I'm like, yeah, it's because like they're magnetic. I'm attracted to their aura. And to Henry's point, express themselves, you know, show themselves like they're a brand without thinking about it. You know what I mean? You know, obviously there's thought of it, but like there's just some people just have a magnetism. And I think it does start with the music because the first time we'll get exposed to these people is through our live streams, and it starts with the music. So oftentimes it'll be like, well, shit, we know nothing about this artist. Oh, the music hooks us in. We're like, oh, shit, there's talent here. Let's learn more. And that's where Henry and I start to figure out whether we're like really getting behind someone or whether it's like, this is great music. We'll sign it, but we're just going to sign it and we'll put them on shows. But it's not as deep as some of the other relationships that we've had over the year. And I really do think it comes to that like magnetism where it's like undeniable.
I really want to zoom into that is that it's almost an and criterion where you need that aura and the music. And I think a lot of artists growing or coming from a different space, whether there's a lot of celebrity DJs out there, there's a lot of DJs who are trying to build their celebrity, right? You kind of need to be working on both, right? Because at scale, right, at the long-term view of this, at the, what do you call it? The 9 mile view, whatever the analogy is called, is you're going to be in the public eye, and whether or not you like it. And I think a lot of it is how you handle it, how you play the room per se. So I really encourage people to think of it as an and condition. It's not or it can be or for now, but it ultimately needs to be an and condition.
Yeah. You can have a really magnetic personality and shitty music.
Yeah, exactly.
That too. No, that too. And that's
not going to get that far. Believe me, like I can work a room. You guys love me. If I had good music to give you, you'd fucking sign me. We get along. We're friends, right? But I don't got the tunes, right? So you gotta do that. I think, it really is energy, right? It really is. What kind of energy does a person have, right? And I think what a lot of that boils down to is authenticity, where especially in LA, like I even noticed this in my kind of younger, earlier years where there's so much energy in that city. There's so much energy when you go to a show, and there's certain cliques and there's certain people, and like you want to be around like the cool kids, and like you can sometimes feel yourself get pulled into that. Right. And then it's like, oh, who do I need to be accepted by these people to get into, this next level of my career? And that's where you get fucked up. Right. It's when you actually really know who you are and like, no, this is who I am. This is what I'm into. This is what I like. This is my style. This is my vibe. This is my energy. These are my beliefs. And I fucking own that. I don't care. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to be anybody else other than I am. And I think it's the people that have that sense of identity of just like, yo, this is who the fuck I am. Like that's felt, you know, and when we are around people like that, that's really attractive. It's like, yeah, this person is they're just super authentic. They're comfortable with who they are. And it's almost like disarming. Then it makes you, you know, like, I don't know. It's a really interesting, like nuanced subtlety, but I've definitely felt it. I've even felt myself slip in between those types of energies as well, where like, you know, like I was saying, I've been in certain situations where I'm like, oh, I feel like I have to maybe be a little bit different to kind of fit into these people, especially when I was younger. Now I've thrown every single fuck out the window. I don't give a shit. Like I am who I am. Like I show up and I'm me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I always say like, you're either the kind of person that, you know, when you walk into the room, you get affected by it and you adapt to it, or you're the kind of person that when you walk into the room, you change the energy of the room. You know, you bring the energy to the room. And you can only do that when you're super fucking locked in to who you are.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. The other thing also, not to be a downer, but it's like also not everyone's going to make it in that way, right? So someone can be exactly what you're saying, be authentic to yourself, to be true. You might be wrong place, wrong time. You know, you might be 10 years late on that energy, or, you know, whatever. So it's like, it's interesting because it's like we give advice and we talk to artists about like, this is what you should do and this is whatever. But then there's always a caveat, which is like, and it also might not work. You know what I mean? Like not everyone might not even be attracted to the energy that you're putting out, and no matter how confident you are. It's right. True. So it's like, but if you don't play by those rules and you don't be authentic, you're never going to have the chance. Everyone can sniff out people who are like putting on a face, you know?
Well, and also like the worst thing would then to also be inauthentic and to kind of have to wear a mask and try to pretend and be somebody that you're not, and then actually start becoming successful. And then you have to just wear this fucking mask all the time and not actually really fully be yourself. You know, that's not winning. You know?
Well, unless you're Marshmello or Daft Punk, that's, you know, they won.
Literally wear a mask. I mean a metaphorical mask.
Totally.
You know?
No, I feel you. But... I feel you. No, and it's hard to do. It's hard to keep that up. You know what I mean? I'm sure people have, but it's like I feel like people sniff it out. You know, if you're authentic or not. I feel like it's very easy to sniff out. But
I think you're onto something though. Like creating the brand that is so disconnected from the person, where it's like it is a masked brand. It's like, all right, well then you don't really have to worry about your personality anymore. Like there's literally a character, an avatar that like you know you're building, and it's a totally different approach. But at the end of the day, though, still like you still got to run your own business. You still got to have relationships. You still got to have a team. You still got to navigate the industry, and you know, being a good person and being a confident person is only going to help you in that process.
Yeah. And by the way, to your point about the team, it's that magnetism that attracts the team to you. You know what I mean? So it's like that's why the agent approaches them or the manager approaches them. When an agent or manager approaches an artist, don't get it twisted. They have some sort of ego thing going on, like, I need to work with this person. Like, that's what's driving those people. They might see dollar signs. It could be that. But it's like, I think that is like to this whole discussion about being authentic, being magnetic, being like a presence in a room. That's what's going to get you the team. You know what I mean? That's what's actually going to make people come to you, because you also, like, shifting a little bit, but I think important to this is like everybody's always like, I wish I had an agent, or I want a manager. Like, it's the biggest mistake that an early artist can make is like be focused on any of that shit. You know what I mean? Like, that shit has to come to you, not the other way around where you have to go try to get it. And so again, it goes back to that authenticity, that thing that only you can bring, whether it's the music or just who you are, or both. Yeah. Honestly, it's both. But
yeah. And at this point, I mean, you guys have seen countless artists really go from 0 to 100, right? You've seen a lot of artists that have been able to navigate the industry, build great careers, you know, and really get to that next level. You've also seen a lot of artists that have probably tried and haven't done it. Yeah. So what else besides that authenticity and that magnetic energy, what else is it that you guys see are some of the common, you know, characteristics that it takes, you know, for an artist to really get to that next level and actually really do this thing?
The common characteristics, I'm going to rattle off just whatever comes to mind. I think tenacity and maybe the flip side to the word tenacity is a little persistence. I think, what's the word? Like nimbleness. So that's in reaction to kind of like things change all the time. There's new trends. There's a way to sniff out what's kind of a fad, and there's, you know, ways to kind of execute your piece of music in a way that's creative. For example, you know that guy Jake, Golden Hour Jake? Like, he had a very creative approach in putting out his track, and it was like, he was so relentless. He was like, I'm going to play this track in every setting in the world I can and put a TikTok out. That's only something that could happen in 2024 or 2023 at the time. It was very today. It was very nimble and reactive to like the conditions of his, you know, modern day existence. So anyway, shout out Jake. I don't know him, but I definitely know the way he rolled in terms of like marketing his music. I think talent is way high up there. Is very important to be talented, and it can be a learned skill. A lot of people say, hey, you got to just have it or not. But I actually think, you know, technical knowledge in music can be a very learned and refined skill. What word goes for like magnetism? I wanted to tee up what we just brought up in terms of like being able to attract. I think is a very important thing. You know, while you guys were talking about attraction, it also made me think back to like how we portray our marketing. It's like we like to avoid pushing as much as possible, and instead say things that attract. Say things that make a community feel seen and heard. And I think that magnetism is very important.
Yeah. You know, what's a term that's used a lot in basketball is irrational confidence. You know, someone who gets on the court. Who's like, you shouldn't be taking threes. You're a bench player. You know, like, what are you doing? It's irrational confidence. And I think that it doesn't mean that it's brash or that you're loud. I don't mean it like that. But it's just like inherent, you know, I think relentless, Henry used that word. That's the word. This like, I'm going to fucking do this shit. You know, good example, like right now, like Warner Case. This is a guy I've known for 10 years. I met him early on. I was just checking out his shit and I'm like, this motherfucker's touring right now. He's killing it on Spotify. This is all him because he's been relentless. He hasn't stopped, and he hasn't let things stop him or trends. He's doing his own music, and I see that, and I look at that, and I'm like, that's what it takes. Will he be a Coachella headliner? I don't know, but he's definitely farther along than he was than when he started. And when you watch him, you're like, no, he's him. He's doing him. There's nothing put on here. It's real confidence. He loves his music that he's making. He's doing his tour where he's doing a lot of rooftops and like random cool places. It's not just a club tour. And to me, I'm like, that's dope, man. That's different. That gives you that differentiates you from another DJ. But it is this like relentlessness that he's been doing, because I get his emails and stuff. I've been getting them for almost 10 years. Yeah. I'm like, this shit's working now. Like and it's more it makes me feel good when we say this, where it's like, just work every day, grind every day, don't stop. Like, that shit is real if you do it. Because think about it. Most people don't do it. People give up. And even if you're still making music, I guarantee you, if you're still in the same place you were before, you're not working hard enough. You have to have this Kobe Mamba mentality to do it in the way, you know, that sports people do it. Like, you have to be that way in entertainment, whether it's music or whatever. And I think that's honestly, like, Henry and I, like, back to Space Yacht, it's like, we take this shit personal, and that's why we work every day. Like, even on the weekends, it's like, you know, we might not have our team meetings on the weekends, but like, I'm definitely like booking shows and doing, you know, and try, because like I have this thing where it's like, if you stop, it will stop. You know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like a thing where it's like, you'll say to yourself, man, I'm so tired. Like, I wish I had a day off or whatever. And then you have the day off and you're like, shit, I'm not working hard enough. Like, that's literally like kind of the nonstop. Like, the grass is always greener, right? It's like, if I'm sitting on my couch doing nothing on a Saturday, I'm like, I'm not doing, I should be doing, this is a waste of time. Why are we, you know, why am I not helping to push this forward? So I think you have to have that mentality as an artist as well, where it's like, and I see this in the artists that are killing it for us, these new ones that we're getting behind. So like, shout out to Crumpet, shout out to Wes Pierce, shout out to John Jose, House Roll, Nar. Those people are pushing as hard as they possibly can every single day. And I see it in their social. I hear it in the music. I see it in the way that people are starting to kind of come out for them. And it's that relentlessness. That's what you need. You know, if you have the magnetic personality, great. You still need to be relentless. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's, if you take one thing away from this podcast, if you're an artist or do anything in the creative arts, like it's that daily grind that is very real, and it's years. It's years. And again, back to us, like, we're almost 10 years into this thing. We're grinding harder than we've ever ground. That's a t-shirt. I'm grinding harder than I've ever ground. Wow.
Yeah.
So it doesn't stop. There isn't, I think in our heads we have this thing where it's like, once I get to this, then it'll just be smooth sailing. Once I have this much money, once I have this, it's never like that. Once you have this much money, you have this much expenses. It's the same.
Yep.
It's always the same money. When you get to a certain level of stardom, you can fall off just like that. I mean, you can look at flyers of old shows when you had headliners where kids now be like, who was that? I don't know that person. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not naming names because I'm not trying to drag anybody, but it's really true. You can become irrelevant overnight. So that's why that grind is still important. That's why, who's doing it well? Like, back John Summey, like he's always grinding and continuing to push what he's doing. I mean, they're doing him and Dom Dalla have this new collab project. It's like, yeah, that's them pushing it even further, being like, us together is even like a bigger thing. And so I respect that. And the artists, Skrillex, great example, like keeping on pushing. He's aligned himself with Friend again, and aligning himself with all these various artists as a way to keep progressing his thing, So no matter what level you're at, you gotta be relentless,
I think we're hitting the nail on the head right now, because this really is one of the core pillars of what we're talking about is really entrepreneurship. This is you creating your own thing. And this is what artists forget a lot of times is like, yeah, you're not just an artist, but you're a business owner. And if you want to build a business, you need to have a relentless work ethic behind that, right? And I mean, every single artist that I know, like when I go back and I think about Mac J. Oh yeah. I think about a lot of the guys from Icon. I remember coming in at like 10 a.m. to start my workday, and he was already sitting there in the corner on his laptop with his headphones on. Same thing with like Sam Jaws.
Yeah.
He would just be sitting there at the fucking table with his headphones on, working on a track. I'd go work 6 hours, 7 hours, do my day, and I'd go to leave. Motherfucker's still sitting there working on a track, like putting in 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, right? I remember talking to when I worked at Capitol Records. I was like the worst assistant in the world. I was so fucking lazy. I was like literally the worst assistant. And but I remember seeing this guy. He was an agent. He was like Avicii's agent. He was like working with Cascade and Avicii and all these guys. And he was a young dude. And I remember asking him like, bro, like how are you so successful? And he just so simply looked at me. He's like, I work like 12 to 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
That was it. That was his answer. It was just fucking relentless work ethic. I remember talking to Mo Shalizi. I remember the last time I saw him, he was at Icon, sitting in the back, and I was just like, "Hey, man, like, how are you doing? Like, how are you?" And he's like, "I just work." He's like, there is no. I was like, how are things like outside of work? He's like, there is no such thing outside of work. Like my entire life is fucking work. That's all I do is work. Literally 24/7. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's that's why you're one of the biggest, most successful fucking agents or managers out there. And it's just like, what's the common thread that we see from all these dudes? All the biggest artists that I know. It's like a relentless work ethic.
Yeah. No. And by the way, I think Mo's a great example because I met him and he was just like, he was friends with Borgor, who was like a buddy of mine, and I just like. You just sit on the couch, just hanging out, whatever. And he built that shit from nothing. And again, back to the relentlessness. I mean, that's somebody who he's a great example of someone where it's like he just did it himself, aligned himself with the right people, and also was able to spot talent, who was able to kind of spot talent and also kind of brainstorm that Marshmallow project from top to bottom and then take that, Mo is a great person to study when it comes to like, creating a brand and working with the right people like that. He nailed it.
And that's where the home runs come in though as well, because it isn't just relentless work ethic. You can also work on the wrong things 12 hours a day. Right? And work inefficiently. Like they say, work smarter, not harder. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say work smarter, not harder. I would say work smart and hard.
Right.
That's when you hit the fucking home run, right? Because it is having that work ethic, but also you got to have the strategy, and you got to be smart. You got to understand the industry. You know what I mean? Like that's the other side of it too. Is like with that, it's like I think of guys like Slander. I think of a lot of these dudes, like even Prototype in the early days. Similarly, Prototype worked for a fucking social media company. And he was just like, he was smart. He was like, yeah, I have a strategy. I know that he was the first one doing like to follow download gates and shit, things I'd never even heard of.
Huge.
So, and Derek and Scott from Slander too, they're like, yeah, we're really great artists, but we're fucking smart when it comes to the business too. Like, we
Right.
know how the business works, and we have a strategy, and we have a plan, and we work smart and hard.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so Mo, Slander, Jaws, all y'all, someone fucking spread the word. These guys need to get on the podcast because we're going to pick their brains about all this shit. So I like to manifest things. I like to just speak it into existence.
Sure.
And just call it out. Derek, get your ass on the show. I'm going to text you. Hell yeah. What are you guys excited about right now? You guys really have your finger on the pulse of dance music. That's what I love about what you guys have done is you guys are culture creators. I've been really chewing on this word about culture lately because you guys are such contributors to creating the culture of dance music, in LA and in America. Like, you guys have your finger on the pulse of it. Like, what are y'all excited about? It's the scene is different than what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What's exciting about where things are at right now for you guys?
I don't know if it's culture creators. I think it's like culture capturers. You know what I mean? Where it's like because we're not making the music. We're just kind of putting all the puzzle pieces together, and the culture kind of comes out of that. Because people say that to us a lot. Like, you're creating the culture. It's like we're kind of harnessing the culture. You know what I mean? Through the lens of our curation. So the artistry in what Henry and I do and the team is in like the curation, like who's going to be there, what does the brand look and feel. Like curation goes from the flyer on down to the lineup. You know what I mean? So I think it's more about capturing the culture. What are we excited about? I'm excited about Twitch. I'm honestly, our Tune Reactor show is like the thing that is like blowing my mind, because when people come up to us in the club now, instead of it being like, oh, like I saw you play live, or oh, I heard your podcast, or now they're like, dude, I submitted music to your Tune Reactor thing. You said it was a bookmark,
crazy.
and that's
So
the
cool.
thing. Both, by the way, it's not just LA. It's like when we go to San Diego, San Francisco, Seattle, like we now have our tentacles in all those cities, not just from the shows, but from Twitch. So that's, I think, for me and Hen, like we're excited. Like every day we're talking about how do we expand this? How can we stream every single day and still keep it compelling? Should we do new programming? Should we have more of a podcasting format where you don't submit music, but it's about music? Like I think that's exciting for us because that actually puts him and I in the spotlight in a way that we're not with our brand, right? Space Yacht is a brand, and it doesn't matter. It's not one is better than the other. It's like Space Yacht's a brand, but Henry and Rami are a brand as well. You know what I mean? We're individual brands on our own. So I think that type of thinking is exciting to us right now.
What are the details of that? When do you guys do that, and how can people be a part of it?
Twice a week, Monday and Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Pacific. We do 2 hours, so it's 8 to 10 p.m. We have a link where you can submit your music. It's donation based, so people have to pay a little bit for it. But our kind of promise is that, we'll give you feedback. If it's not something we're going to sign, we're going to hopefully give you like good feedback that you can use to elevate the track. And then the other piece of it is that for those, even if you don't want to submit music, it's a great community of producers in the chat. So, if not sharing live on air is your thing, because not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to put themselves, like me and Henry, like we'll put you on blast if it's not good. But our thing, we've said to each other, we're like, it can't just be like, oh, I don't like that. Because sometimes I'll get lazy and be like, no, if you're paying to be on the show, we have to give you something of value, back to the word value, something of value in return, whether it's notes or whatever. But if you just want to watch and like hear new music, or if you just want to kind of be in the shadows, like the chat is really awesome because people are giving great feedback. It's not just me and Henry's feedback. It's the chat has really smart things to say. And then there's been a lot of collaborations through the show where it's like, oh yeah, I met that person in the Tune Reactor chat. Now we're making a record. Like that's real too. So I'd say for those that just want to kind of investigate the community, come watch the show. No pressure to submit your music. But for those producers that do want our feedback, that's where you do it. Also, I mean, not to toot our own horn, but I don't know of a single label that has like open door A&R where you get feedback from the heads of the label. Like maybe there's somebody, but I don't know who's doing that. So that's what I think our differentiator is as a label. It's not just that we put out fucking awesome tunes by new artists, but it's like you're actually getting this direct connection to us. Like if like you can't tweet at us and be like, man, like the Space Yacht guys never get back to me. It's like, motherfucker, you know where to find us. Monday and Wednesdays, 8:00. Just come through. You know what I mean? We're right there. So we take a lot of pride in that concept, and I want to keep pushing that even further where it's like, we've done well with records. We've had, we have a bunch of records that are over 1 million streams. We're really proud of that. But like once we get like a fucking hit, that's when I think the whole Tune Reactor thing will also kind of level up as well. So the label and Tune Reactor are like totally intermingled. Yeah. And so I think in terms of what is exciting, that to me is like the forefront of what Space Yacht is doing right now, you know?
Man, I want to acknowledge you guys for showing up as well, because I know how much of a commitment that is. Like doing it not only once a week but twice a week, doing 2 hours. Like I do one podcast a week. It's like an hour. I get to hop on and have a fun little hour-long conversation. That's a lot of work. And I hope people also realize that that these guys are putting in work. Take advantage of it, be a part of it. It's a really, really cool thing that you guys are doing. I don't know any other record labels that are doing that kind of shit. That's fucking awesome.
Thank you. Henry, what are you excited about?
It's crazy. When we started Space Yacht, it was the whole era of like, the toolkits are free, guys. Twitter's free. Facebook's free. Instagram's free. It's how you leverage it. And we would have thought it could have just ended there. And that's just this whole chapter of social media. But like, Rami likes to say, reach is freedom, right? Your ability to make yourself visible is a form of, it's a key that unlocks freedom. So I'm just shocked to see how like even, 10 years later from that jump off is like, we're still seeing this evolve, and it's more fragmented. The bad way of saying it is fragmented. The good way of saying this, it's democratized. You have all these micro celebrities who are just relevant to their niche, and that's all they care. They don't even care about being a household name. They care about having their first 1,000 really locked in super fans that are going to keep their career going. And outside of that, it's so normal now for them to be completely unknown to another side of the world. And you know what? It's okay now. It's ever more okay than ever in the past, because it's just so, it's freeing to them. They found their key to unlock their freedom, and shout out to those artists. So I'm excited to find that for, like Rami said, us as people and us as a brand together and our team. It's exciting. There's so many ways to cut that cake, and it keeps us going every day.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I literally had that conversation with somebody just before I got on with you guys, where they asked me about, we were talking about like TikTok and social media strategy, and they're like, "Do you want to be like an influencer?" I was like, no, like I have no desire to have 100,000 followers, but I want to like have my, my crew, my people that fuck with me and that are, make sense for the headliner mindset and this podcast and this community. It's like, it's not everybody. It's not for everybody. My style and my vibe and my swag and my energy is not for everybody. I'm not trying to coach everybody in the fucking world, but for the ones that are for me, hell yeah, let's rock and roll, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are you guys doing shows right now? You guys expanded. I heard San Diego, Seattle. Where else are you guys throwing parties?
We're in L.A., San Francisco, Seattle, San Diego, Las Vegas. We did a show in Salt Lake at the beginning of the year that was awesome, so we're hoping to do more stuff there. Basically, it's like when we find good partners in these cities, that's when we're able to do residencies, whether it's Vegas, we're there once a month, or, San Diego, we've been there like every 6 weeks now. So like it's just, for us, it's been about finding the right partners, the right venues, and also like a place that is, that has people that we can book to play the shows. It's much easier. We really like to put people on who are local as well. So it's not just like bringing the LA people to every city. It's like, we'll have some people from our label, but I always want to put at least 3 people who are local in the scene as a way to support that community scene. So far it's been great, but we've definitely taken this year to kind of double down on the shows outside of LA, and it's going really well. I mean, it's definitely different. Like LA is different than any of the other cities because we've been doing it for so long. It's almost like each city is its own build, and they're at different stages of that build. So like for example, our number 2 market is not San Francisco or Las Vegas, it's Seattle. We have a real fucking community there. We have a real crew there. By the way, that's also partially due to our label manager, Tony H. Give a shout out to Tony H. He's the mayor of Seattle and has been part of the reason why we've been so successful there, because he is somebody who's like just very beloved in that city. And so we've been able to bring Space out there in a way where it's like, cool, we're going to book some bigger artists that don't normally come to the city. But then, honestly, Tony helps curate those lineups because, we'll sit on the thing and I'm like, all right, like, who's really, we're doing this Latin Tech House night, for example. Like, who in the city is representing that, and who can we put on who have like a crew of people who would appreciate that and would, make it work for everybody. So, different places are different stages, but San Francisco's been great for us as well. We've partnered with a couple different venues there and been able to do really awesome shows. We do Fresh Start New Year's. We've been doing it for the last 3 years, which is a huge New Year's show. They have, Cascade, all these different mega artists. So that's a cool opportunity for us because that puts us in like a bigger light. Like that's like big festival stuff. And also shout out to Insomniac. They've been really helping us with club shows and stages at their festivals. So we've just been able to partner with some really, really great brands, great entities, and people. Honestly, people who believe in us. You know what I mean? Because they see the value that we're bringing, which is the kind of like, when I say this, it's not negative, but the minor leagues in baseball, like you have to be one of the best baseball players in the world to even be in the minor leagues. It's a feeding system into the majors. So when I say that about us, I'm not saying it negatively. I'm saying, no, we are the feeding ground. We are finding the best talent and nurturing them so that they can go to the majors. And I think that's kind of what all of these different cities have in a different way. It's just localized. So it's like we're trying to do that in SF. We're trying to do that in Seattle with those people to kind of push them through our system and push them up,
Well, I'm planting the seed right now. Austin is the live music capital of the world.
There you go. We got to be there. We got to be there.
Out here, there is a lot of people. There's a lot of producers. I truly feel like there is something bubbling. I think there actually is a lot of untapped potential in Austin. I think they've got the techno and progressive, like the house scene is like pretty dialed in, but when it comes to any other fucking genre, there's just there's a void, waiting to come through.
I like it.
Or waiting to be filled.
We love Austin. We've had fun times there. So you're right. We should be
come
back
out.
there.
We'll fucking shoot some guns, eat some barbecue, and fucking throw some parties, boys. Let's go.
Let's go.
Where's my cowboy hat?
Where's my gun? I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, fuck, yo, you guys, it is so awesome to reconnect with you both. Really,
I'm ready
really
for Austin.
thankful. Oh.
I'm ready for Austin.
Rami's got the cowboy hat. He just pulled the cowboy hat out. Fuck yeah, dude. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Yeah, we're ready for y'all. Let's do it. But it's great to see you guys. Thank you for taking the time to hop on, and really, really stoked to see how things have just, continued to grow and continue to expand. What you guys are doing is amazing. You guys have helped so many artists out there, and I know you're still just getting warmed up. So keep up the good work.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
King came for the east, now I'm in the west. Stunting on hoes in my Sunday best. Came.
Now I'm in the west. Hoes in my Sunday best. Came for the